I never thought a single glance could shatter everything I believed about myself. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of gray, forgettable morning when the sky feels like it's pressing down on your shoulders. I was late. Again. My coffee had spilled on my blouse in the car, and I could feel the sticky warmth spreading across my ribs as I rushed through the revolving door of the office building. I didn't look up. I never did. People were just obstacles between me and my desk, between me and the next meeting, the next deadline, the next rung on the ladder I'd been climbing since I graduated top of my class. Then I saw her, an old woman, maybe 70, maybe older, standing by the elevator. She wore a faded cleaning uniform, the kind with a name tag pinned crookedly to the chest. Her hands were red and swollen, gripping a mop handle like it was the only thing keeping her upright. And she was staring at me, not through me, not past me, at me. Her eyes were dark, wet, and for a second I thought she might cry. I didn't know why. I didn't care. I had 3 minutes to make it to the 9th floor. But that look, God, that look, it followed me into the elevator, into my office, into every moment of that day. And by the time I understood what it meant, it was too late to take back who I'd been. If you've ever wondered whether one person can change your life in a heartbeat, stay with me. Because this story isn't about her. It's about what I almost became. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. This channel is just getting started. And every day we're sharing stories like this one. Stories that remind us we're all human. All right, let me tell you what happened. My name is Claire. I'm 34, a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm in Boston. And until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I had the job, the salary, the corner office with the view of the harbor. I had a boyfriend who looked good in photos, and a circle of friends who all ordered the same cocktails at the same bars. My life was a checklist, and I was ticking boxes faster than anyone I knew, but I was tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. I'd wake up at 5:30 every morning, go for a run I didn't enjoy, shower, dress in clothes that cost more than my first car, and drive into the city with my jaw clenched so tight, my dentist had started asking questions. I told myself it was ambition. Drive, the price of success. Really, I was just scared. Scared of slowing down. Scared of being ordinary. Scared that if I stopped moving, I'd realize I didn't like the person I'd become. That morning, the Tuesday morning, I'd fought with my boyfriend Derek over breakfast. He wanted to go to his sister's wedding in Vermont, and I didn't have time. I'd said something cruel, something about how his family didn't understand what it took to build a real career. He'd left without kissing me goodbye. I'd shrugged it off. There were emails to answer. So when I walked into that lobby, I wasn't thinking about kindness. I wasn't thinking about anyone but myself. The old woman was standing near the elevator bay, leaning on her mop, catching her breath. I could hear the faint wheeze in her chest, the way the air struggled in and out. The floor around her was still damp, smelling of bleach and something sour I couldn't place. She looked up as I approached, and I saw her eyes widen just a little. Like she recognized me. I didn't recognize her. I stepped around her, jabbing the elevator button twice, 3 times, like that would make it come faster. The doors opened. I got in. I turned around. She was still looking at me. Her mouth opened, like she wanted to say something, but I didn't wait. I hit the button for the 9th floor and looked down at my phone, scrolling through nothing, just to avoid her gaze. The doors closed. I exhaled, and I didn't think about her again. Not for hours. The day unfolded like it always did. Meetings, spreadsheets, a conference call where I made someone from accounting cry because they'd missed a deadline. I ordered lunch at my desk, a salad I barely tasted, and fired off 30 emails before 2 o'clock. My assistant, Jamie, a sweet kid fresh out of college, brought me coffee without being asked. I didn't say thank you. I was already on to the next thing. Around 4, my boss, Richard, called me into his office. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, the kind of man who wore cufflinks and talked about legacy. He told me I was being considered for VP, that I was the front runner, that if I kept up the pace, kept delivering, I'd have the job by New Year's. I smiled. I shook his hand. I walked out of his office feeling nothing. That should have been a clue. I left work at 7, later than usual. The building was nearly empty. The lobby lights were dimmed, and the security guard nodded at me as I passed. I was halfway to the door when I saw her again. The old woman. She was sitting on a bench near the entrance, her head tipped back against the wall, eyes closed. Her uniform was still damp in places, dark patches under her arms and across her back. Her hands were folded in her lap, fingers laced together like she was praying, or just too tired to move. I slowed down. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way she looked so small, so worn down. Maybe it was the silence in the lobby, the way sound carried. I could hear her breathing again, that same labored rasp. She opened her eyes, looked right at me. "Claire," she said. I froze. She knew my name. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "Do I know you?" She didn't answer right away, just looked at me with those dark, watery eyes. Up close, I could see the lines in her face, deep grooves around her mouth and eyes, the kind that come from years of hard work and not enough rest. Her hands were worse than I'd thought. Cracked skin, knuckles swollen, nails broken and uneven. "You don't remember me," she said finally. Her voice was soft, accented. "Eastern European, maybe. Russian or Polish. I didn't think you would." "I'm sorry," I said again, and this time I meant it. It's okay." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You were very young, and I look different now." My heart started to pound. I didn't know why. "Who are you?" She stood up slowly, wincing as her knees straightened. She was shorter than me, barely 5 feet tall. "My name is Irina," she said. "I used to work for your family, a long time ago." The world tilted. Irina. The name hit me like a punch. I could see her suddenly, younger, stronger, standing in the kitchen of my childhood home. I could smell the bread she used to bake, hear the way she hummed while she folded laundry. She'd worked for my parents for years, cleaning, cooking, taking care of me and my brother when they were too busy. I'd been 9, maybe 10 when she left. I didn't remember why. I didn't remember asking. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Irina." She nodded. "Yes. What are you?" I stopped, looked at her uniform, at her hands, at the mop leaning against the wall. "What are you doing here?" "Working," she said simply. "I clean this building, 5 nights a week." I felt something twist in my chest. Shame, maybe, or horror. I didn't know. Why would you? She wasn't angry, just tired. "It's been a long time, Claire. You've done very well." I didn't know what to say. I stood there, my purse hanging heavy on my shoulder, my phone buzzing with messages I didn't want to read. "How long have you been here?" 3 years. 3 years. I'd walked past her dozens of times, maybe hundreds, and I'd never noticed. "I'm sorry," I said, and the words felt hollow. "I should have." "It's okay," she said again. She picked up her mop. "You're busy. I understand." She turned to leave. "Wait," I said. She stopped, looked back at me. "Can I?" I hesitated. "Can I buy you a coffee? Or dinner? I'd like to talk." She studied me for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "I have to finish my shift. Please." Something in my voice must have gotten through because she sighed. "Tomorrow," she said. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. I take my break at 8. I'll be there." She nodded, and then she walked away, dragging the mop behind her, the wheels squeaking on the tile. I stood there until the security guard asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Derek, who'd come home late and smelling like whiskey, and stared at the ceiling. I kept thinking about Irina, about the way she'd looked at me that morning, like she was seeing someone she used to know, someone who'd disappeared. I remembered her now. Not everything, but pieces. The way she used to braid my hair before school. The stories she told me about growing up in Ukraine, about winters so cold the windows frosted on the inside. She'd had a daughter, I thought. Older than me. I'd been jealous of that daughter once. Jealous of the way Irina's face softened when she talked about her. I didn't know what had happened to her. To either of them. The next evening, I left work at 7:30 and walked to the diner. It was a small place. Linoleum floors and vinyl booths. The kind of spot that served breakfast all day and smelled like grease and coffee. Irina was already there, sitting in a booth by the window, staring out at the street. I slid in across from her. "Hi." "Hi." She looked older in the fluorescent light. Grayer. "You came." I said I would. A waitress came by, poured us coffee without asking. Irina wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to warm them. Her fingers trembled slightly. "How have you been?" I asked, and immediately felt stupid. How did I think she'd been? "I'm okay," she said. "I work. I sleep. That's enough. Do you still—" I stopped. Started again. Your daughter. Is she? Irina's face closed. She died 4 years ago. The air left my lungs. I'm so sorry. Cancer. Irina stared into her coffee. She was 36. She had a son. My grandson. He's 12 now. Where is he? With me. I raise him. She looked up at me. That's why I work so much. He needs things. School, clothes, food. I want him to have better than I did. I felt something crack inside me. Irina, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. If I'd known, what would you have done? She wasn't angry, just curious. You didn't remember me until yesterday. She was right, and it hurt more than anything she could have said. I want to help, I said. Please, let me help. She shook her head. I don't need charity, Claire. It's not charity. I didn't know what it was. You took care of me. Let me take care of you. I took care of you because your parents paid me, she said quietly. That was my job. It was more than that. Was it? She looked at me, and there was something in her eyes I couldn't name. Do you remember the last time you saw me? I didn't. I shook my head. You were 10, she said. Your mother told me I had to leave. She didn't say why, just that they didn't need me anymore. I asked if I could say goodbye to you, and she said no. You were at school. I left my apron on the counter and walked out. My throat tightened. I didn't know. I know. She took a sip of coffee. I'm not angry, Claire. I stopped being angry a long time ago. But you asked why I looked at you that way yesterday. That's why. Because I wondered if you'd remember. If I'd mattered at all. I felt tears prick my eyes. You did. You do. She reached across the table and patted my hand. Her skin was rough, calloused. It's okay. You were a child. Children forget. But I hadn't just been a child. I'd been a teenager, a college student, an adult, and I'd never once thought to ask my parents what happened to her. Never once wondered if she was okay. I'd been too busy climbing. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing Irina regularly. I'd meet her at the diner on her breaks, bring her food, ask about her grandson. His name was Dmitri. He was shy, she said, but smart. He liked math and basketball. He wanted to be an engineer. I asked if I could meet him. She hesitated, then agreed. The following Saturday, I drove to her apartment in Dorchester. It was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. The walls were thin. I could hear a baby crying somewhere, a TV blaring in another unit. Irina opened the door. Come in. The apartment was small but clean. A couch with a crocheted blanket, a kitchen table with 2 chairs, a bookshelf crammed with library books. Dmitri was sitting on the floor, doing homework. He looked up when I came in, dark eyes wide and cautious. Dmitri, this is Claire, Irina said. She's an old friend. He nodded but didn't speak. I sat down on the couch. Your grandma tells me you're good at math, he shrugged. It's okay. He's top of his class, Irina said, pride creeping into her voice. He got a scholarship to a summer program at MIT for middle schoolers. That's amazing, I said. Dmitri's face flushed. It's just a program. It's more than that, I said. You should be proud. He looked at Irina, who smiled, and for the first time, I saw something soften in his expression. We talked for an hour. Dmitri opened up slowly, telling me about his favorite subjects, his friends, the Celtics game he'd watched last week. Irina made tea, the kind that tasted like herbs and honey, and we sat in that tiny apartment and laughed about nothing in particular. When I left, Irina walked me to the door. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing him. For seeing me. I hugged her. She stiffened at first, then hugged me back. Her body was small and bony, and I realized how fragile she was, how much she was carrying. I'm going to help you, I said. I mean it. Claire, please, let me. She pulled back, looked at me. Why? Because I should have a long time ago. I started small. I paid for Dmitri's summer program. I bought him new clothes, a laptop for school. I set up a fund for his college education, something that would grow over the years. Irina protested at first, but I insisted. I told her it wasn't charity. It was the least I could do. But the more time I spent with them, the more I realized how much I'd been missing, how hollow my life had become. I'd been so focused on success, on proving something to people I didn't even like, that I'd forgotten what mattered. Irina didn't have much, but she had Dmitri. She had purpose. She had love. I had a corner office and a boyfriend who didn't know my middle name. One night, after another late dinner at the diner, Irina looked at me and said, "You're unhappy." It wasn't a question. I didn't deny it. Yeah. Why? I laughed, but it came out bitter. I don't know. I have everything I'm supposed to want, but not what you need. I looked at her. What do I need? She smiled. That's not for me to say, but I think you know. She was right. I did know. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The truth was, I'd spent so many years building a life that looked good on paper that I'd forgotten to ask myself if it felt good to live. Every morning I woke up in that expensive apartment with its view of the harbor, and I felt nothing. Every night I came home to Derek, and we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch, scrolling through our phones, barely speaking. We were roommates who occasionally slept together. That was all. And work. God. Work had become a prison. I'd thought the VP position would change things, would make me feel accomplished, validated. But sitting in Richard's office that day, hearing him tell me I was the front runner, all I'd felt was exhausted. Like I'd won a race I didn't even want to run. Irina had nothing. A fourth-floor walk-up, a grandson to raise on a cleaning woman's salary, hands that ached every night from mopping floors. But when she talked about Dmitri, when she told me about his basketball games or the way he'd aced his math test, her whole face lit up. She had something to live for, someone to love. What did I have? I went home that night and looked around my apartment. The designer furniture, the artwork I'd bought because it matched the color scheme, the kitchen I barely used because I was always too tired to cook. It was beautiful. It was empty. I thought about my parents, about the way they'd let Irina go without a second thought, without even letting her say goodbye. They'd taught me that people were disposable, that the only thing that mattered was moving forward, climbing higher, getting more. I'd learned the lesson well, but I didn't want to be that person anymore. 2 weeks later, I quit my job. Richard thought I was joking. Then he thought I was having a breakdown. He offered me more money, more vacation time, a promotion effective immediately. I turned it all down. I need to do something different, I said. Something that matters. He didn't understand. I didn't expect him to. Derek didn't understand either. We broke up 3 days later. It was mutual, or at least we said it was. Really, I think we both knew we'd been holding on to something that had stopped being real a long time ago. He wanted someone who'd fit into his life, who'd go to the right parties and smile in the right photos. I wanted someone who actually knew me. We weren't those people for each other. Maybe we never had been. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I started volunteering at a community center in Dorchester, helping kids with homework, running after-school programs. It didn't pay much. Actually, it didn't pay at all at first. But it filled something in me that 6 figures and a corner office never had. The kids were loud and messy, and honest in a way adults never are. They didn't care about my resume or my LinkedIn profile. They just wanted help with their fractions or someone to listen when they talked about their day. I loved it. After a month, the center offered me a part-time paid position. The salary was laughable compared to what I'd been making, but I took it anyway. I moved to a smaller apartment, one I could actually afford. I sold the designer furniture, gave away the clothes I never wore, simplified everything. My parents were horrified. They called me once a week, trying to talk sense into me. My mother kept saying I was throwing my life away. My father said I'd regret it when I was older, when I realized I'd given up my earning years for nothing. I stopped answering their calls. Irina kept working. I tried to convince her to retire, to let me help more, but she refused. I need to work, she said. It's who I am. I understood that. Work wasn't just about money for her. It was about dignity, about providing, about being someone Dmitri could be proud of. I stopped pushing. Instead, I showed up. I went to Dmitri's basketball games and cheered until my voice was hoarse. I helped Irina with grocery shopping, carried the heavy bags up those 4 flights of stairs. I sat at their kitchen table and did puzzles with Dmitri, listened to Irina's stories about Ukraine, about her daughter, about the life she'd lived before she came to America. I became part of their family, and they became mine. One evening, a few months after I'd quit, Irina called me. Her voice was tight, scared. "It's Dmitri," she said. "He's in the hospital." My heart stopped. What happened? Asthma attack. A bad one. They're keeping him overnight. I'm on my way. I drove to the hospital, breaking every speed limit. When I got there, Irina was sitting in the waiting room, her face pale, hands folded in her lap. I sat down next to her. How is he? Stable. They said he'll be okay. She let out a shaky breath. I was so scared. I took her hand. He's going to be fine. She nodded, but tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't know what I'd do without him. He's all I have. You have me, I said. She looked at me, surprised. You have me, I said again. And I'm not going anywhere. She squeezed my hand. And we sat there together, waiting, holding on to each other. Dimitri came home the next day. He was embarrassed by the fuss, but Irina hovered over him like a hawk, making him tea, checking his inhaler, asking if he needed anything every 5 minutes. I brought over soup and stayed for dinner. We played cards at the kitchen table, the 3 of us, and Dimitri laughed when I lost for the 3rd time in a row. You're terrible at this, he said, grinning. I know, I said, but I'm having fun, and I was. More fun than I'd had in years. It was the kind of simple, ordinary moment I used to think wasn't worth my time. Now I realized it was everything. That was 6 months ago. A lot has changed since then. I found a full-time job at a nonprofit, working with low-income families. It pays a fraction of what I used to make, but I love it. I wake up every morning and actually want to go to work. I come home tired but satisfied, knowing I made a difference in someone's day. I see Irina and Dimitri every week, sometimes more. We have dinner together, go to Dimitri's basketball games, watch movies on her tiny couch. They've become my family in a way I didn't expect, in a way I didn't know I needed. Irina still works, but not as much. I've helped her cut back her hours, convinced her to take better care of herself. She sees a doctor regularly now, takes medication for her arthritis, rests when she needs to. She's healthier now, happier, and Dimitri is thriving. He's talking about applying to MIT when he graduates high school. I have no doubt he'll get in. Last week, Irina invited me over for Sunday dinner. When I arrived, she had a photograph waiting for me on the table. It was old, the edges worn, the colors faded. In it, a younger Irina stood in a kitchen, my parents' kitchen, with her arm around a little girl in a school uniform. Me, I was smiling up at her, gap-toothed and happy, and she was smiling down at me. I didn't remember the moment, but I could feel the love in it. I kept this, Irina said quietly. All these years, I kept it. I looked at her, and I couldn't speak, couldn't find the words. You did matter to me, Claire, she said. Even when you didn't remember, even when I thought I'd never see you again. You mattered. I started crying. Right there at her kitchen table, with Dimitri pretending not to notice, I cried harder than I had in years. Irina put her arms around me and held me. And I realized that this moment, this connection, this love, this was what I'd been searching for my whole life. Not success, not validation, not a title or a salary or a corner office. Just this. Someone who saw me. Someone who cared. I think about that morning in the lobby a lot. The way Irina looked at me, like she was seeing a ghost. The way I almost walked past her without stopping. The way I'd lived my whole life walking past people without stopping. I don't do that anymore. I look at people now. I see them. The barista who makes my coffee, the security guard at my building, the woman selling flowers on the corner. I see them, and I remember that everyone has a story. Everyone matters. Irina taught me that. Not through words, but through her life, through the way she kept going, kept working, kept loving, even when everything had been taken from her. She didn't owe me anything, but she gave me everything. I'll never forget that, and I'll never stop being grateful. Because the truth is, I didn't save Irina. She saved me. She reminded me what it means to be human, what it means to care, what it means to look someone in the eye and actually see them. And now, when I walk through that lobby every day on my way to work, to my new work, my real work, I always stop and say hello to the cleaning staff. I learn their names. I ask about their families. I see them, because they matter. They all matter, and I almost forgot that. But I won't forget again. If this story touched you, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's forgotten to look up. Someone who's forgotten that kindness is everywhere, if we're willing to see it. And if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe if you'd like. We're building something special, a place where stories like this one remind us of what really matters. Not success, not money, not the corner office with the view, but connection, compassion, love, because at the end of the day, that's all we have, each other, and that's more than enough. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for remembering, with me, that every person you pass has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.